What's up, you tuners? David here. We are going to tackle something I'm not very good at today. Life. Just kidding. That tackles you. We're going to do some bodywork in this episode. So strap in, not on, and let's go for a ride. Let's start off with the very bad here. There's obviously lifting and cracking of the paint and the layers of Bondo on top. This car had damage that I didn't realize was being concealed by a spoiler when I bought this car nearly 10 years ago. Later on, when I changed out the spoiler for the current one you see now, I discovered that damage. A few years back, I attempted to fix part of the cracking, but I half-assed it and used some aluminum-filled Bondo. That square and terrible paint you see is from that. The rest of the rear deck is ashy like me in the winter, and there's holes from the spoiler install that the dealership did. It's time to fix all of this. I'd installed these plastic plugs and smothered them in silicone years ago so that it wouldn't leak. Let's pull the plug on pulling these plugs. The rear-facing portion of the deck lid is totally fine and in great shape, so let's leave that to be and mask that section off. We only need to focus on the top. I'm going to sand the whole surface, as the whole thing might as well be touched up with body filler and repainted. It's been nearly 2 years, so I don't recall for sure, but what I think I'm trying to do is remove the burrs around the edges with this step bit. What are you doing, step bit? Following hot off of that statement, let's fill these holes. A good and fairly easy tactic for this is to slowly build up small welds around the inner diameter of the hole. By doing this, you can slowly build it up around and inwards and close that gap. It'll look funny and rough at first, but your mom did too and she grew on me just fine. We love you, son. Here, I get to bang on stuff with a little slag hammer and act like I know what I'm doing. It's hammer time, baby.
I stand tough and carry a big, big hammer.
Rise and grind. It's time to bring the welds down and flush with the body. Looks like we developed a small hole after removing the first round of welds, so we'll just re-weld that spot in and grind down the surface until we're left without any holes. It doesn't need to be 100% perfect, as we'll be using body filler and paint. discovering just how much Bondo was used back here on the rear deck. There's a nice, probably at least 1/8 inch layer on a lot of this surface. They really built this up. Let's pull all of this old stuff off and make way for redoing the entire thing. We'll want to make sure and remove all the rust too. Otherwise, this will just start bubbling from underneath and cause issues all over again. Here I'm segmenting both sides of the deck lid, as one side really needs attention where the other only needs minor attention. I don't want to cut down the other side with the grinding wheel, so I'm going to go ahead and section it off. I still find myself wondering how this happened. It's like there's two big craters on the rear deck lid. Here, I'm trying to push the surface flush so we won't have to try and use all that body filler, like the shop must have done. But the problem is I'm very limited to access from the backside key due to the internal structure and frame of the deck lid. The proper thing to do here would be to rent a weldable dent pulling tool, but that's a little beyond the scope of what I want to get into. With that done, let's sand the surface to get it a bit more even and ready for that filler. You'll always want to work with a clean and prepared surface. I'm talking get that thing ready enough for food safety standards. Quick question, what is the internal temperature that chicken needs to reach in order to be safely cooked? Doesn't matter, you're watching a car channel. What I'm doing here, well, this is not quite the proper way to mix Bondo. You want to do it in such a manner that you're not creating air bubbles by folding it over itself. I'll refine the method and do a better job in a little bit, as you'll see. Just please remember, I'm not a body guy. I mean, just look at my body. Obviously, I don't know how to work on a body. Instead of trying to use less and then having less to sand, I really should be applying more Bondo and creating a higher area. Having more in this instance and bringing the surface back down is a better thing to do. Like I mentioned earlier, Using all this Bondo isn't exactly the correct or best method. I'll be doing it in my case, but I don't recommend it. You want to try and get the metal as close to flat as possible, and then use light amounts of filler. Again, we're trying to do all this stuff ourselves and within a budget and in a reasonable time frame, so we'll work with what we have. This won't be a garage queen, nor will it be a perfect example of a car. It is simply my daily driver, and I want it to look better and fix the glaring issues. Here, I'm checking for flatness, kind of like my chest muscles, and marking out where to add more Bondo in order to get it flat and leveled. It's time to hit the gym. My Atlanta, my Atlanta. I don't even know what that means. That was a ton of work, though. Filling, sanding, sanding, more sanding, sanding. In the words of Anakin, I hate sand. Bing. Yeah, that sucked. So, anyways, now that that's done, I have masked up the car again, and I, as you saw, cleaned all the area with compressed air. We're going to go ahead and hit that one more time, and then hit this with the IPA, isopropyl alcohol. And then we're going to use the tack cloth as well here too, just to make sure that we are going to be painting on the cleanest and most prepared surface that we can. And yeah, it is less than ideal conditions out today for painting. It's not cold, but it is pretty warm and it's extremely humid. It's about 90% humidity today. It has been pouring rain the past week or so, and it's not clearing up. Unfortunately, I have a timeline with this car. I need to get this over to my friend Rudy for the PPF, and that is in preparation for, well, being able to use this car again, honestly, and then taking it to the track. Not to mention this thing has been sitting halfway backed up into the garage for over a week now, and I need the garage back, and I want to be able to close the door. So anyways, let's go ahead and throw that first layer of primer on here and see how that turns out. With all of that checking for a flatness, sanding, checking, sanding several times over, we've finally gotten to a point where we can go ahead and prime and paint the deck lid. But let's first clean the dusty mess we've made. I'm using a tack cloth here, which helps pick up any small debris and dust before we paint so we're not locking dust particles in. We'll first throw on some automotive spray primer out of a can. I think I had ill-advised directions of painting both vertically and horizontally on the deck lid, as I thought that would prevent the tiger striping you can kind of see here. I would advise you only paint in one direction, either front to back or side to side. I'll then throw on some coats of a specific paint code mesh rattle can from a company called Automotive Touch-Up. I have lost the video footage, of course, but I then sealed that with a high quality 2K clear coat from a spray can. That will protect your paint from UV damage and be high quality enough to last for many years. Yes, it's kind of hysterical to get to this point, only to find out I've somehow lost my footage of spraying the 2K clear coat and then the final paint job itself. So I just recorded this here at the end of January. It's been over a year and a half, nearly 2 years, since I did that work. I'd say overall it turned out pretty good. Obviously you can see there's imperfections in the finish, but I got to a point where it was diminishing returns. Like I said, this is my daily driver, and I just want it to look better. Doesn't need to be perfect, but I'm actually pretty happy with the way that it turned out, and it's certainly far better than it was before.